Hello. Today's video is about my bell ringers, my Diamond Math bell ringers. Here's a typical Diamond Math bell ringer. On this one, we would, like all these, we're going to be adding the two numbers together for the bottom number, multiplying them to find out what the top number is. So in this case, our top would be 3 times 4, and our bottom would be 3 plus 4. Which means that our Diamond Math bell ringer would end up with a 12 on top and a 7 on the bottom. Okay, in this case, the bell ringer doesn't have the top, left and right, it has the side and a bottom number. So in this case, we need to find out what number goes here first, because we still have to multiply those two numbers to get the top and add them to get the bottom. Well, if we're adding to get the bottom, this would be like saying 3 plus what is going to give us 8. Well, if we subtract 3 from both sides here, we would get our what is equal to 5. 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. So now that we filled in that spot here with a 5, I can now do 3 times 5 for the top, and I end up getting a final bell ringer left as a 15 on top and a 5 on the side. Now on this bell ringer, we're given the top number. We're given the top number and one of the side numbers. We need to figure out what goes in these two spots. To do that, we would have to figure out what for the bottom, for this side here, we have to work out what happens here first. So we have to say 5 times what is going to give us 15. Well, the opposite of multiplying would be to divide by the 5. And we find out our missing number is a 3. So this would become a 3. Now, what do we do for the bottom here? Well, to find out what goes here, we would have to do 5 plus 3, which is going to give us an 8. Okay, on this one, it's similar to one we saw before, but now it's got a negative involved. To find our number here, which is what we'd have to find first, we couldn't go to this one yet because we have to multiply these two to get that. We don't know what this number is. To find out what this number is, we're going to have to do 2 plus what, our unknown, is equal to negative 8. To solve, we would subtract 2 from both sides, which is going to give us an x is equal to negative 10. Oops, 10. Which means that this spot is going to be a negative 10. Then for the top, it would be 2 times negative 10, which is going to give us a negative 20. Okay, on this one, we've got the multiplication part. We've got one of the numbers here. We need this number before we can find this number. To find this number, we have to ask ourselves 3 times what is going to give us negative 9. And again, we would divide by the 3, which is going to give us x is equal to negative 3. So I have a negative 3, which makes sense because negative 3 times 3 is going to give us a negative 9. Now when we go to add those, since these are opposites, the result will end up being 0. This is the hardest part of a Diamond Math bell ringer. When you're given the top and bottom like this, when you're given the top and bottom, you got to ask yourself, what times what is going to give you 10, the top number, and what plus what is going to give you 7. It's the same two numbers. This number and this are the same, this number and this are the same, but two numbers that multiply to give us this number, but the same two numbers that add to give you 7. So for that, we start listing the factors of 10. You got 1 times 10, 2 times 5, And we're not going to go into decimals here, so that would be all the factors of 10. Notice how 2 times 5, when you add those, you would get 7. So those are going to be our answers here. We would put 2 and 5 here. 2 times 5. 2 times 5 gives us a 10. 2 plus 5 gives us the 7. Okay, this takes it a little bit further, gets a little more complicated. Again, we are looking for what two numbers times themselves are going to give us this, what two numbers added together are going to give me that, but since we got negatives, we got a little bit of an issue there. Well, let's take a look at the factors of 8. You have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Those are the only factors of 8. In order for it to be negative, in order for this number to be negative, we would have to have one of these be negative and one of them to be positive. So we look to find ones that will add together to give us a negative 7. Well, both of these could be negative, and it still would only add up to negative 6. But only one of them can be. So it's got to be the negative 8 and 1. Because 1 plus a negative 8 will give me a negative 7, while 1 times the negative 8 will give me a negative 8.